We went all the way to the home of the Corvette for this episode. I'm talking about Bowling Green, Kentucky. And I honestly bet you did not know that, but RJ did. And on top of that, he knows a lot of different things when it comes to the oil industry, specifically with the American oil industry. He can tell you what salt domes are. He can tell you when the first well was actually drilled. He can tell you how the reserves work and everything of the sort. He can even tell you about getting reserves, using those reserves, and acquiring more reserves, because how you come into business within oil really can depend. And with having success as a business, there are a lot of different options, from going the private route to having a larger company buy you out to even deciding to go public on your own. So you'll hear all things about how RJ was initially in business with family. They were doing really well for themselves. They had a bigger company come buy them out. And then afterwards, he just got a little bit bored. While as retirement is a goal for a lot of us and things that we want to do. And it was definitely something that was on his docket as well. He loved making money. He loved making his partners money, and he loved being able to do so with family. So without further ado, enjoy episode 185, Back to Business. All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Down to Business podcast here with Tamar Turner. Big shout out to RJ and the team for just taking the time to sit down with me today. I was going through some of the bios. One, they were amazing just with the follow-ups. They were very responsive, very fast, very quick. So we always do love that on the Down to Business side. But I was going through the bio, was very intrigued, very interested. So I'm excited for him to give y'all just a little bit of a deeper dive into what he does, maybe even teach you something today. And maybe even, there may even be some opportunities here that come from this. We always love episodes that end like that. So RJ, before we get into all things about why you're here today and everything like that, how are you? How's everything on your end?
Well, I'm doing terrific. Thank you for having me. It's raining in Kentucky today, but you know what they say, if you don't like the weather in Kentucky, just wait 5 minutes, it'll change.
Wow. So we met, Kentucky and Florida may be eerily similar. So no rain for us yet. I may jinx us when I say that, though. We are supposed to get a lot of rain this weekend, though. So, and I know it's like the state fair and things like that going on, but I will say that, yes, Florida could be 5 minutes looking like this, and then in 10 minutes it could look like that, and then 2 minutes down the road it could look like that. So I definitely do understand that, but praying that, you guys do get some sunshine for the weekend. So now, I know why we're here today. You know why we're here today, but there are a host of people who essentially know nothing about myself, know nothing about you. There may be some people from your side, there may be some people from my side, and there may be just some people kind of flowing in between and coming across this episode one way or another. So to bring everybody up to speed, to put everybody on the same page, can you, one, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then can you, two, just tell us what brings you on the Down to Business podcast today?
All right. Well, my name is RJ Burr, live in Bowling Green, Kentucky, home of the Corvette, and I'm in the oil business. It's all I've ever done. Was on my first rig at 7, made my first sale 3 months out of high school, and haven't looked back. Third generation, and my grandpa did it. My uncles have done it. My dad does it. My brother does it. It's all we do. And well, we kind of have multi-purposes. I mean, everybody's in business to make money. And so, yes, the number one goal of what we do is to fund our programs and to drill our wells. However, in the last couple of years, I've been very fortunate. And what I mean by that is in oil and gas, the ultimate pinnacle of an oil and gas company, and there's nothing academically pedigreed. This is just being 30 years in the business and kind of thoughts that we built on the business. For a company to reach the point where they're producing oil. And what I mean by that is most oil and gas companies spend their entire career chasing oil. Doesn't mean they're not good at what they do. Doesn't mean they don't find oil. Doesn't mean they don't make their partners money. Doesn't mean they don't make money. It just means they have to produce everything they find to keep their engine going. And when a company can get ahead of that and know that every time they're drilling, the oil should be there. Doesn't mean you're going to hit every well you drill. And please, this is oil and gas. If anybody ever tells you it's guaranteed, they're lying to you. Only the good Lord above knows exactly what's down there. And so start from that foundation. Now, if you can get ahead of the curve and get to the producing oil stage, that simply means that every time your drill bit touches the ground, if you reach total depth, the oil should be there. But more importantly, it means that you've acquired enough reserves where you can utilize those reserves to acquire more reserves. Now you're truly in the oil business. And at that point, typically one of three things will happen. Either one, you stay private. Everybody's making plenty of money. No reason to sell anything. You just keep going and make your money. Secondly, a major comes in and buys you out. A larger comes in, sees what you're doing, and they basically make you an offer you can't refuse. Third, you take it public. And so to get to that producing oil stage is a key that I truly believe is the rarest event in oil and gas. Now, as I said, we've been fortunate. In our first life in oil, we were able to get to that point. And that ended here about 12 years ago when Marathon Oil bought my family's company. And so we kind of, entered into early retirement. I was in my mid 30s. Took me, about 2 months to realize I wasn't going to make the PGA Tour. And took me another year or so to finally go stir crazy. And it'll be 8 years ago in July. Me, my dad, my brother, we finally we had enough. We love making money. We love making our partners money. We love oil and gas, and so we cranked back up. Now the difference between our first life and our second life is we don't have to do it this time. This time we're not looking for a cosigner. We're setting pretty good, and so we could take our time and methodically go through the directions we wanted to go. And as you do this, you realize that most people don't understand the American oil industry because what has happened here in the last couple of years, the industry has completely changed. And what I mean by that is if you went out and grabbed the average American and just said, hey, how did the crash of April in 2020, how did that affect the oil companies? Most people would look at you and say, well, it's Exxon. They can handle it. Well, it's Shell. They can handle it. And yeah, in fact, Exxon and Shell could handle it. It did hurt them a little bit, but they could handle it. But the fact of the matter is, they're not American companies. Just because some of them are based here, they produce internationally. Now, I don't behoove them anything on that. They're beholden to their stockholders. They have to do what they have to do. So, what does that leave when it comes to who produces American oil? Well, 83% of your oil, 90% of your gas, and more than 90% of the wells drilled are drilled by roughly 9,000 independent companies that average 12 employees or less. That's your American oil industry. And so when that crash happened a couple of years ago, it had a major effect on those companies. Your first wave knocked out was right there when the markets crashed. Your younger companies, companies on shaky financial ground, immediately they were out of business sign in the front door. Well, the next wave came a couple of months later when COVID hit. Remember when we sent everybody home for COVID? Well, the companies that could pay their employees more than the government to get them back to the field, they're the ones that made it. The companies that couldn't, a lot of them didn't make it. And so you had a clearing of the playing field, so to speak, like I've never seen it in more than 30 years. And so at that point in time, we kind of saw it coming. We didn't see COVID coming, and I won't get in the weeds and tell you what all we saw coming, but we basically saw a crash coming because of what Russia and Saudi Arabia were doing. They for lack of a better term, they were engaging in economic war with our shale industry. And if you can push the prices down, the shale industry, a lot of those companies are leveraged and need at least $50 a barrel to pay their bills. And so if they could push the prices down, all of a sudden these shale companies are in trouble. Well, that was really the dynamic of what we were getting ready for. And when you string together all the crashes in American history, in every case, I love history. I mean, it repeats itself. All you have to do is pay attention to it. And so if you look at all those instances, there's really two strings that tie all those people together. Because in every case, there's one or a group of people that come out looking like geniuses. And typically, when you look at those two strings, it's when the crash happened, they were flush with cash, they were liquid and could move. The second is when their opportunity presented itself, they had the courage to push their chips in the middle of the table and make the move. And that's really the only two common factors they share. And so what we saw is we saw the crash coming. We thought there would be acquisition opportunities. And when COVID came, really the biggest change, it took what we thought would take 12 to 18 months to play out, and it crunched it down into 30 days. And so since that point in time, we've made more than 20 acquisitions, have secured what we believe to be about 100 million barrels of oil in reserve. And now we're developing it. And that's where my partners, they make a tremendous amount of money. We go out and drill these wells. They save money on their taxes. However, when it comes to who we are and what we do, yes, we're an oil company. We drill wells. We make our partners money. We save money in taxes. However, as you start going on podcasts, as you start doing more interviews, I was at CPAC last year. I'll be at CPAC again this year. And you start talking to people, you realize most people don't understand, one, the American oil industry, but secondly, they don't understand the role that oil plays in their life. And that's a really scary thing because the modern world did not begin until 1859 when that first oil well was drilled. Oil changed the world, and the entire modern world has been built on the back of oil. And so when you look at it, I'm a big movie buff, and one of my favorite movies is The Usual Suspects. And one of my favorite quotes from it is, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. Well, when I look at what the modern environmental movement or alternative energy movement, when I look at them, I kind of modify that quote a little bit. The greatest trick they ever pulled was convincing the world that oil was bad, because everything we do has a foundation of oil in it. And I truly believe you could go to any city in the country, randomly grab one person at any point in time, and they would have at least two products of oil on them, and most likely not even know it. From the clothes you wear, to the makeup the ladies put on, to the hair product, to your everything, plastics. I mean, pretty much oil is involved over 6,000 products from one barrel, in addition to the energy it creates. And so it's a major factor in our lives. And there's a train wreck coming. I mean, if people don't realize what's going on, and that, I mean, it's hard to argue with Santa Claus. You with me? When somebody's stated goal is to save the world, and that's the dichotomy they've set up, it's hard to argue with them. I want to save the world. I don't agree with you. What, you want everybody to die? And so it's putting that stark, when in truth, I believe everybody has a little environmentalist in them. There's nothing I love more than walking out of my front door in the morning, look at the big field in front of the house with the horses running. I keep it mad. Well, if that's not environmentalist, I don't know what is. I don't believe anybody wants to live in trash. And so I truly believe that is a false argument, because if your stated goal is to save the world, yet your solution to it is that we have to destroy the world first, then you're not a serious person. You don't deserve to be engaged with, because to do what they're wanting to do, we would have to pillage and rape the earth for material like we never have before. You know, when you think about it, if they truly did want to save the earth, if that was their goal, we'd go natural gas nuclear. In the US, we already have most of the infrastructure built for natural gas. Most people have gas running to their homes. You could convert every car on the road to run on natural gas. You could put the pipelines to people's garages. Then they don't have to go to the gas station anymore. Boom, it's problem solved right there. Well, they don't want to do that. They don't even want to look into it. Well, if natural gas is not the route, let's go nuclear. You mean to tell me we can run the most advanced subs on the planet off nuclear, yet we can't do it here? No. They let people get scared by a movie 40 years ago, and they're still pumping the fear. You know, and so if you truly wanted to save the environment and use an alternative energy that would work, we already have stuff on the table that would work. I mean, they discovered the first solar panel 150 years ago. They hadn't figured it out by now. I don't think they're going to figure it out anytime soon. You know, and so you don't want to engage in a false argument, because I believe all of us have a little. I just don't agree with the route you want to go. It's going to take some wizard or smart. It's going to take some kid that just thinks outside of the box and comes up something we're not even thinking about. And it'll happen. Don't know when it's going to happen, but it'll happen. And till then, well, we can learn ways to burn it cleaner. We can learn ways to do, but it's really, if one country goes completely clean and another country is just using everything they can and polluting does it really make a difference what you do? You know, and so it's a false argument. And so you look at all the dynamics, and then you look at, well, how is that going to affect people? Well, we're all in the oil business. It doesn't matter whether you want to be or not. You're in the oil business. We all pay for it, myself included. And so you look at all this, okay, well, what would rising prices do? Well, look at it right now. Do you not think the cost of energy has a large play in what is going on with prices around? And so you look at all that and you go, well, now let's get in the actual numbers of it. Currently, we consume roughly 10 to 15 million barrels a day more than we produce. They expect that number to be close to 30 million by 2030. Well, okay, so we're consuming more than we produce. Does that demand look like it's going to go down? Well, I don't know. I know that 17% of the population consumes 50% of the production. 83% of the population is just now beginning to use oil. Now that they see what oil can do for them, do you think they're going to choose to go in the Stone Age or choose to go in the modern age? So I don't see demand going down. Okay. Well, let's look at production. Are we spending money to replace the oil that we produced? Well, in 2014, we spent a little over 900 billion in upstream development, investment to find more oil to replace what we produced. We're going to be lucky to hit 300 billion this year. That's worldwide. So investment in upstream development's gone down 60, 70%. Man, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see if there's a product that everybody needs and there's not enough of it, what's the price of that product going to do? And so if I can see this, okay, well, surely there's something to replace it with. Then you go look at the alternatives. No, there's not. When you look at the projections of what they're building, they're actually an economy in the world should grow, your energy supply should grow 2 to 4% a year. What they're doing right now is only going to allow it to grow less than 4% over the next 10 years. So, I mean, just everything you're doing doesn't make sense because there's nothing to replace oil with, yet more people are using oil than ever. And so then you look at it and say, well, if I can find all this, if Jay Burr here in Bowling Green, Kentucky, can get on his computer and pull all this documentation up, it's not random stuff. It's not one person sourced. It's going through multiple people. I mean, I'm a pretty intelligent guy. When you have 10 people saying the same thing and their math backs it up, you tend to, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and swims like a duck, it's a duck. And so you look at all this, you say, well, who's investing in this? All of a sudden, you see a lot of these major oil companies. I know every one of us has seen a commercial, Exxon trying to save the world, or BP cleaning the ducks, or we're investing in alternative energies because me and oil. Well, why would they do that? I mean, they can see what I see. So, okay, if they do see what I see, this can only be one of two reasons. Either one, they're altruistic. They believe their product is destroying the world. So they're willing to lose their money, lose their stockholders' money, lose their company's money, and lose what they spent decades building all in the name of saving the planet. Okay, who am I to say they're not doing that? They could be doing that. Or the alternative is they do know what I know. However, by investing all this money in alternative energies, what are they going to get? They're going to get social loving. Everybody loves somebody who wants to save the world. Two, they're going to get tremendous tax benefits. So they're going to save a lot of money in taxes at the same time. But remember, they know what I know. What happens when the illusion busts and everybody realizes there's nothing to replace oil with? How much is the oil they already have going to be worth at that point? So I don't know which one they're doing. I can think I have a pretty good idea. And so when you look at all of these dynamics, man, people need to know this. I mean, people need to know that because it's something that you want to crush a country, eliminate their energy. If you want to see America live back in the Stone Age, take our energy from us. And so it doesn't make any sense why they would do it. I mean, I have my tinfoil hat reasons, and but there's nothing documented to back it up. It's just what my gut tells me. Now, I am a firm believer that your gut's normally right. There's a reason God gave you those instincts, and we've kind of learned as society has gone on to ignore them. And that's a scary thing when you ignore your instincts, because when 1 + 1 always equals 2, and they're trying to tell you it equals 3 and then trying to justify it, look, it doesn't matter. They're lying. Doesn't matter. 1 + 1 will always equal 2. There's no way around it. And so you just try to, that's what we do. We try to make people money in oil and gas because we all know we're in the business. And so if we can show you a way to get that flow of revenue coming back, well, heck, we're doing something that not many people can do. Then at the same time, if we can educate you on what's going on, if we can just kind of shine a light on this, because this is the most untold story on the planet. I mean, you look at what is going on. Watch Apollo 13. How did they get back? Yeah, they had great scientists. Yeah, they had great techniques. But the number one thing they had to have, energy. They had to have the energy out of those batteries to get it there. And so, I don't know. I don't like getting in. It's one of those deals. It's like debating religion with somebody. Who am I to tell you what you should think? And so I just kind of, it's one of those that you have a hard time debating against Santa Claus, but at the same time, eventually you have to when Santa Claus is wrong. And so,
And I like that because really what all you can do sometimes at the end of the day and when it's all said and done is just put the information out there, make the things make sense. Like you said, all you can do is make 1 + 1 = 2. You can't let somebody else come in and saying three when they're clearly wrong. You can't let that kind of affect you. But no, even in really just listening to your story, from this really being a family affair, basically nobody has a choice. This is kind of what's happening here in the Bird family. But no, to really even hear a lot of the information you just gave me, a lot of that little known information on my end, like you said, I'm the public. I'm in those people who really don't know much about the industry, but I'm one of
mhm.
those people too who realize that they it's everywhere around us. Energy and products and things that we're using. Now that you kind of were naming, when you said 6,000, I'm like, Dag, I wonder how many things I use today that probably had that in some capacity, or what I'm using right now that needs that. But I think what you're doing is very interesting from for a multitude of reasons, to be honest. But where I kind of want to go to is so coming into business the second time around, like you said, marathon kind of, and it's actually funny that you said marathon. I had to get gas earlier this week, exactly where I stopped at marathon. But so coming into business the second time around, having your partners with you, having the multitude of knowledge that y'all had and just experience that y'all had, would you say that there was any difference in what y'all did? Y'all were look y'all did, was there like a clear focus now? Was it kind of like a been there, done that? So this is kind of what we're aiming to do now. Because now you said, look, you're kind of way in a much better position. You're not even thinking about if anybody will want to come along and do anything. If anything, you want to spread the wealth, spread the knowledge to everybody else. So what was really this second time around? What was that journey like? What was that experience?
I, it's been unbelievable. I mean, it really has. When I first got in the business, my dad wore every hat in the business. I mean, he turned every knob that needed to be turned. And it wasn't long that we realized to run a successful business, a successful oil business, it's darn near impossible to run it perfectly efficient with one guy doing it. There's too many moving parts. And so when I got in business, we divided the business into two sides. One side was the fundraising and operations side. The other side was the geological and field side. And so my first day in the office, I walk in, my dad sets me at a desk, puts a big old phone book in front of me, hands me a script and a phone and said, have fun. And that was my just smiling and down. That's what I did. I learned how to sell the oil. My brother, on the other hand, his first day in the office wasn't in the office. He went straight to the field. And that's where we spent our first 20 years. And oh, I'm not gonna fib to you. I mean, I'm a young type A guy. And me and my dad, yeah, we had plenty of times where we butted heads. I mean, just because it's when you're so much alike with somebody, you're gonna butt heads. And so our first life in oil, I mean, it had its ups and downs, but we were young and charging, and that's it was a different world. I mean, we cut our teeth at the end of the J.R. Ewing era of oil. It was the most ruthless stage of oil, and we were fortunate. Now, the second time out, we're all a little more mellowed. We're all a little more, I'm still that type A guy that will run headfirst to a wall. However, I think about now. I kind of think about, well, how's it going to look if I do run through that wall? Is that the smartest thing to do? And so you sit down and you find what works. You find your path and you stay within it. I see so many guys that are a jack of all trades. Well, if you're a jack of all trades, chances are you are a master of none, because there's a reason old sayings are old sayings. There's some truth to them. And so, you look at that. Well, you take us, for example. We love salt domes. The reason we love salt domes is because they're the oldest formation in oil. Your original oil fields were salt domes. They were the first geological formation your Wild West geologist could identify. Now, your old oil companies are essentially, they're like spoiled kids. And that a spoiled kid's favorite toy is their next toy. And so what they would do is they would go out, they'd drill a well, they'd hit a big well, they'd be cutting back flips, producing all this oil over the next couple of years. They'd drill 5, 10, 15 wells around it, produce a bunch of oil. Well, remember, we're talking 1920s. At that point, they thought they'd produced it all. They'd hit a well a couple of miles away and they'd say, okay, and they'd pick everything up and move over there. Well, how much oil did they leave behind? Now, in a lot of cases over the next 80, 90, 100 years, companies came in and fully developed and produced all of it. That's happened. I mean, that's why it's so hard to build a major oil company with 100 million market cap on American oil. It's only happened one time in 40 years, because most of your company overnight fields have been discovered. And so you have to string together a bunch of smaller fields to do it. And so when you look at Salt Dome, there's over 600 of them across the Gulf Coast. A lot of them don't have any oil in them. A lot of them have already been produced. Well, there are quite a few of them that haven't been developed properly. And that's what we do. We go through and we look at the ones. I would love to say that it's sexier than that. I would love to say that there was more, hey, we reinvented the wheel and figured something out. No, we stand on the shoulders of giants and get what they left behind. Now, in a lot of cases, they've left a lot of oil behind. And all you have to do is know where to look. That old saying about the ship was broken and they brought out all these guys that could fix it and none of them could figure it out. And they finally called the old man that nobody wanted. He walked out there, looked at it, took a hammer and hit it one spot and it started. He handed him a bill for 10,000. They said, "You didn't do $10,000 worth of work." He said, "You didn't pay for $10,000 worth of work. You paid me 10,000 because I knew where to do it." And so as long as you know what you're looking for, and yes, we've drilled other wells. Yes, we've drilled in other formations, and I mean, heck, some of our biggest wells were horizontal wells through fractured formations. And so that's we'll go in other areas, but when I'm looking for something where I can cookie cutter it, I like salt domes because one, like I mentioned ago, there's a lot of oil left behind on salt domes. But secondly, it's difficult drilling. You have to have a certain level of expertise to drill these wells. And so it really eliminates a lot of the competition. Most companies don't have that technical proficiency and know how to drill them. And so we do. I mean, there's a reason that the Yankees are the Yankees and the A's are the A's. And so that's kind of the credo we live by. I know that we're only as good as our guys in the field. And when it comes to me, I'm just I'm the guy that helps steer the ship. I make sure we have the money to do what we need to do, and I fund the programs. And so it's a treasure. It's to have my brother in the field. I mean, that's a key for any oil and gas company. You talk to any veteran in the oil and gas business, and you ask them where's the biggest pitfall, and they'd say not having somebody in the field that's on your team. Because all of a sudden, when a $20,000 job turns into a $40,000 job, or an $80,000 job turns into a $120,000 job, or a well that was supposed to cost 3.5 million ends up costing 5 million, that's what breaks companies. And so when you have somebody like we do in the field that knows the cost, knows how to negotiate it, and puts the company in the right spot, because one, it's his money too. And that's just that's where we have an advantage over most companies is because they don't have eh, we think I'm not going to say we figured it out. Heck, I'm 48 years old and I still haven't figured out how to tie my shoes right. So you head down, tail up, keep plowing, and eventually corn starts growing.
Consistency and persistence will always take you much further than anything else. I'm a firm believer in that. But I love what you spoke to about everybody kind of having a different role, because there's nothing wrong with being a one man band, a one man show, but there's nothing wrong also too when people have different stronger skill sets, or when people are, like you said, can negotiate, or when people can talk, or when people just know the business, know how to get that price point. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. I'm just in it from this perspective. I'm in it from this perspective. So I love that idea, just because it also speaks to, as business owners, as entrepreneurs, we have to realize that sometimes we just take on a little bit too much. Sometimes we bite off a little bit more than what we can chew. And it's not to say that it can't get handled. It's not to say that it won't get handled, but sometimes it's at what rate, at what cost. Did I do this the best way that I could have? Could I have utilized some more resources and maybe save some time? I'm a firm believer, especially as I get older, working smart, not hard. I'm going to work hard regardless. The grind is always going to be there.
Mhm.
But wow, if I could delegate this, or if I could put somebody in the field or have somebody there, I'm going to do that every single time. So what you were saying really honestly, since I read kind of what was going on and looked up kind of what y'all had going on from this perspective, I've had this one, I want to consider it a very basic question, but to me, I think it's going to teach me something, but it may even open the door for a few other things that I'm curious about. So when it comes to what y'all do specifically, drilling these wells, as you were saying, or even the salt domes, how do you do this? Can you just go to where you believe a well is and just start drilling? Do people own? Because I know you, now I heard you kind of talking
Yeah,
about,
no,
I know it's not that simple, but I want to ask it like that because I know some people think, well, wow, can you just kind of go somewhere? And if I'm the first here, can I just drill that and take everything that's good? What is the process to, finding wells, drilling wells, and then kind of taking that as yours?
nah, it depends. Well, it depends on where you're drilling. It's all pretty much the same, but if you're going out into an area where there's no production, if you're going out where you're trying to create something that's never been created, that's a wildcat well. You're wildcat. Industry averages, you're going to hit 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20 of those. I mean, they're very hard to hit, and it just is. You're trying to establish production somewhere where there's never been production. Well, what you'll do is you'll typically do subsurface mapping. You'll do seismic. You'll try to get a picture of a formation, something that would hold the oil, a trap, something. And they'll look at all these markers now. For them to shoot the seismic, for them to get all the data, they have to talk to the landowners, the mineral owners, the guys that own all those minerals. Now, typically they will buy the minerals before they do it, or they'll put some kind of payment on it where if there's nothing there, they walk away, they lost that payment to them. However, they give them a payment, they go out, they shoot it. Oh, hey, we want to drill it. Now they've already negotiated the mineral rights with the mineral owner, and it'll run anywhere from typically 20 to 30%. Is they'll get right off the top. That'll be the overriding interest that goes out to the landowners. And so now, areas where there's production before, we knew there was production. We're drilling right now. When you hear them talk about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, that's our salt dome. We own all the minerals around the Bayou Choctaw and Baton Rouge. And well, there have been over 250 wells drilled around the salt dome over the last 100 some odd years. Well, all that data is public data. If you're willing to do the legwork and go to the courthouses and track it all down, you can see all the data from the wells that have been drilled, what their production was. I mean, you can pull it all up. And so in those particular areas, you're not really needing to do as much new geology because it's already been done. Now what you do is you just negotiate with the landowners to get the, whatever terms. Now, when they know they have something, they're going to want more. When they don't, like that wildcat situation, you might be able to negotiate with them for 10, 15% because they have no idea. None of you know what's down there. However, you get a landowner who knows that he has oil there, he's going to want more. And it's just a matter of what percentage you can negotiate with them where you can still live with it, where it doesn't kill the deal. And so that's the basic of it. Now, I could go, when it comes to what holds the oil, we can go into 100 different types of formations. I'll go into salt domes just because that's what I love. And I can explain it in a quicker manner. So imagine years and years and years ago, dinosaurs, all that out there. Well, we have the ground. There's the ground. Well, under the ground, you have layers. Okay. Think about a layer cake. Layer cake, layer fudge, layer cake, layer fudge. Well, it's stacked. You have layers stacked. Nothing interrupting it. Well, in a couple of those layers, you're going to have hydrocarbons, oil, and water, say, mixed together. Well, there's no traps on either side. There's nothing keeping it in place. So that water can kind of migrate. It doesn't flow. It's in rock. It's all, but it can migrate left and right. Nothing trapping it. Well, all of a sudden, here comes a salt dome. Well, a salt dome comes from way underneath it, and it's basically just a big body of salt that's pushing towards the surface, basically Earth's pimple, for lack of a better term. And so it's pushing up. Well, it hits these layers and lifts those layers as the salt dome's coming through it. Okay. Now, go to a gas station and look at a puddle on the ground. You see that rainbow sitting on top? That's oil. Oil will sit on top of water. It's just their physical properties. That's what's going to happen. Well, it's no different in the ground. So if you have all this oil and it's at a level horizontal plane, there's nothing on top. However, when that salt dome comes in and lifts it, now what have you done? You've created a channel where the oil will set on top and the water will set on the bottom. And so as the salt dome goes through, there's your first trap, the salt dome. The oil can't go through it. And so it traps, it's the roof. Well, where's the other side of that trap? The water. Once it separates and that oil is setting on top, the water, it's not going to go back through the water to get out. And so there's your traps. Well, you'll have multiple layers. Well, eventually that salt dome is going to hit a cap rock. It's going to hit something it can't go through. And when it does, it mushrooms. Well, once that stops, your low-hanging fruit, where you want to produce a salt dome, is right underneath that mushroom cap. And so when we look at salt domes, that's the first area we call it the ring of fire. Once we see what that overhang has, in most cases, they fully develop. Like I said, it's the low-hanging fruit. Well, when we purchased this field, upon our original geological inspection, we said, okay, it looks like there could be 15, 20 million barrels sitting out here. And so based on that number, we made the acquisition. Well, once we did that, then we went out and we gathered 40,000 different data sets that had been created on this field over the last 100 years. We digitized them and put them in one spot. we laid that geology all over our pre-existing geology. All of a sudden, we're like, holy, there could be 40, 50 million barrels sitting out here. Well, the last piece of the puzzle was a 3D seismic. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve, they shot 3D seismic over the salt dome to see where the salt ended so they could dig their caverns. We said, hey, can we see that 3D seismic? We need to know where the salt ends so we don't drill into it. And so once we took that 3D seismic and laid it over top, all of a sudden that's when our heads blew. We're like, oh my God, there could be 100 million barrels sitting out here. Because that overhang, we assumed it had been completely developed when we purchased it. And we were still okay with buying. Once we got that 3D seismic and looked at it, they had left roughly 70% of this overhang alone. And so it's like it's crazy. I mean, we have 250 wells around this field that tell us where the oil is. And so now we're basically just going and picking it out. Now, like I said, it's difficult drilling. We've lost, in the last 2.5 years, we've drilled 11 wells out there. We placed 8 of them in production. We've had 3 mechanical failures. Now we'll go back and re-drill those 3 mechanical failures because we found oil. We just got locked up in the hole. But once we figure out how to overcome that, we'll go back. We found the oil. And so in those 8 wells, we found, 39 different pay sands, 39 of those layers with almost 1,300 feet of oil. Well, that's several million barrels of oil that we've already found for the partners that will produce out over the next 20, 30, 40 years. And as long as the wells are producing, they receive their revenue. I'd say the partners on those deals. Now, once again, we have to produce the oil. It'll take us 15, 20 years. And we have some wells that go for 30, 40 years. But so we still have to produce all that oil. However, looking at what we already have in the ground and what we believe reserves are, I'd say those partnerships will range anywhere from 3 to maybe 8 to 1 on the partner's money. And so that's basically what we do.
My laptop literally did this to me. Give me one sec. It literally did that to me yesterday. I have no idea why, but now I know. So, okay, I'm very glad that I asked that question because I feel like I said, I was approaching it from the most basic understanding and just standpoint possible of just like, okay, I know they can't just go up to a place and show up and just start drilling and do whatever. But I love kind of that breakdown because it's just like you said, you can get into a million different techniques, a million different terminologies, a million different terms and everything like that. And you just gave me one. And I feel like with that one, there were so many possibilities that come with that. Like you said, you were out of the 11, 8 of them are in production. 3 of them, while they were mechanical failures, there was still potential. There were still things there that you could kind of benefit and everything. So what interests me too is the partnering aspect. So when people are coming to y'all now and wanting to partner, are they wanting to partner with, hey, are we coming to help y'all drill? Are we coming to just help negotiate a deal? Do the partnerships kind of vary in range depending on who it may be? Because like you said, now you guys in business the second time around, you're not interested in being bought out. You're not even in position for people to really come to you and make you an offer that you can't refuse. You guys are doing the thing and then some. So are people kind of coming now to really are they in search of business? Do they need some sort of resources? What do a lot of partnerships and what do a lot of collaborations look like for what you and your family are doing?
Okay. Typically, our partnerships are specific well oriented. We might be drilling, say, 3 or 4 wells, and the partners will invest in those specific wells. They'll get their tax. I mean, that's where you get the tax benefits. Uncle Sam, now everybody varies a little bit, but Uncle Sam roughly pays for a third of the investment. It's an above line deduction. You let's say you owe Uncle Sam 100,000. You put 100,000 in oil and gas. Uncle Sam roughly 65,000, and so that's it in year one. And so that's why a lot of individuals invest in oil and gas. They love those tax benefits. However, tax benefits are not the sole reason to invest in it. Now, you'd be naive not to acknowledge them because they are tremendous. However, that's not the reason to do it. The reason to do it is the revenue. The reason to do it is the oil you would produce. And that's one part. Now, when it comes to them having an active role, no, it's limited partnerships. They're hiring us to do all that. Now, do we have some partners that get involved? Yeah, we have some that are, we have industry partners that have been doing it a long time that they might call and say, hey, we got a field over here we might want you to look at, just kind of various. But the main thing when it comes to our relationship with the partners is our job is sole job number one, win for the partners. And so every decision we make has one foundation to it. Is it good for the partners? And if that answer is no, we don't do it. Doesn't matter how good it would be for us, because without our partners, we don't have a business. And so everything we do is geared towards winning for them. Now, when it comes to individuals that have never looked at oil, have never invested in oil, the best thing I'd tell you to do is go to our website, panex.us/learn. We created this page specifically for individuals who've never invested in oil. You'll see Oil and Gas 101, which is basically a breakdown on the oil and gas industry and what we do. Oil and Gas 102 basically breaks down the tax benefits for you and how they work. Last year around Christmas, I was at the office early one morning before everybody got here. I was making a cup of coffee, and I'm looking around the kitchen. And like I said, I've been doing this my whole life, and this is the first time I've ever done this. I started looking around the kitchen in the office. I said, "Well, that's made from oil. That's made from oil. That's made from oil." And I started going through the whole thing. And when I was done, I was shocked. I was like, "Man!" And then it hit me. Well, Jay, you've been doing this your whole life, and you didn't know that. How many other people don't know that? And so we put together and filmed a little movie. We were going to do it a day without oil, but it would have taken too long. And so we just stuck to a morning without oil. And it's on that page. And a morning without oil is basically a couple wakes up in the modern world, and I'm kind of narrating. So, well, hang on, we're going to do a morning without oil. Remember, let's rewind it and start it over. And we replace all the products that were made from oil, and now they're gone. And it goes from them getting out of the bed, going to the bathroom, and going to the kitchen, and it ends when the husband's leaving for work with a donkey versus and so it's kind of an eye opener. We try to be funny about it, but it's one where it's like, look, guys, please understand what this product means to you. This is, understand. And then you have, you get in, well, oil's destroying the environment. Oil's doing that. I just give anybody one challenge. Get on the internet and type in oil field and hit images. And then open another box and type in lithium mine and hit images. And you tell me which one's destroying the environment. It's nonsensical. And so when you look at all the good that oil can do for you, and look at all the good that oil can do for all, somebody's going to consolidate this oil. Somebody's going to go out and buy all this American oil. It's going to happen. Well, doesn't it make sense for people to do it, actually care about what happens to it? And so that's what we're doing. We're trying to acquire as much oil as we possibly can, because when it comes to our own personal goals, we want to build a major oil and gas company. We want to build the first major oil and gas company in 40 years strictly on American oil. And the only way to do that is to consolidate this oil. And somebody's going to do it. I can't be the only one who sees this. I'd love to say, yeah, I'm the rocket scientist and I'm the one who saw it before everybody else. But no, it's not that hard a problem to solve. You can sit down, and so somebody's going to do this. Well, honestly, I think it should be us, because during COVID, I learned a couple of things. One, if a country doesn't control its food, medicine, or energy, somebody else does, and you're in trouble. Well, we don't control any of them. And so I don't know enough about food to give an opinion on it, other than I like it. I don't know enough about medicine to give an opinion on it. Now, oil and energy, yeah, I can give an opinion on that. And so I just kind of look at it. We're sitting in a position where we can do something special, and the opportunity's here. And we're just trying to get it to alert as many people as we possibly can to what's going on. And if you want to jump on our team, terrific. We'd love to have you. If not, hey, you're not going to hurt our feelings. We've been told no before. I'm an oil and gas guy. I've sold on the phone since I was 18. I've been told things that would shock you. And so, don't worry about hurting my feelings. I got thick skin. We just try to educate. Now, our programs are designed for accredited investors. Simply means net worth $1 million, annual income of 200,000 or more. Reason being, it is oil. I'm not going to beat around the bush. By nature, it's speculative. Now, what separates the men from the boys? How do you manage that risk? What kind of position you put your partners in? Like the deal I'm currently funding, we're drilling 2 wells, and we're directly offsetting almost 500 feet of pay sands. And so if it was there 50 years ago and it was there a month ago, it should still be there now. And so is that a risky program? Yeah, because we still have to drill the wells. However, when I look on the scale of risk, it's about as safe a well as you can get, because we know the oil's there. Now, could we be wrong? Once again, yeah, we could be wrong. It could have just magically Kaiser Soze on us and disappeared. But I don't think so. And so knowing what we have, we're in this for the long run. I'm not going anywhere. I've had the same phone number since my wife convinced me to get a cell phone when we had our first kid. I was one of the last of the Mohicans. I wasn't going to do it. I got it 24 years ago. I got my first cell phone, and now it's like my third arm.
Oh man, I absolutely I love that. I love that ending to it. But I love just the trajectory that y'all have. And I love how, I love how you spoke to what y'all did the first time around. And then I love how you emphasize really what the second time around was and what it's been for y'all and the success that y'all been able to have. But also I love the education and the knowledge aspect. Because like you said, I think that's really what it is. And I'm going to kind of segue into a question somebody joining us on Facebook asked. So they were kind of just like, I feel like there's a lot of things out there. Like you said, it's up to people. Are they willing to put in the legwork? Are they willing to just open that phone, open that Safari, type in Google, and really just allow the world to be your oyster? Will you go down that rabbit hole? Will you, find the right things? But somebody said, hey, if all this data is readily available, what stops so many people from taking on this venture? Is it a lack of knowledge? And I also kind of want to add to that to ask about location. Does this really have to be something like, if you weren't in Bowling Green, Kentucky, would we still be sitting here talking about the same story? Would you still be telling me the same things?
Yeah, well, anybody can do it. Now you have to know what you're looking for. I mean, you have to know where to go. You have to. I mean, there's specific careers designed around being landman, being, being your lease hustlers. I mean, there's a whole division of employment that we haven't even discussed. Yeah, that's how you pull all that down. When it comes to geographic location, no. I was born in Beaumont, Texas. Grew up in Dallas. My dad, he's been sober 40 something years now. I'm 48. So yeah, it's 40 something years now. I was right at 10 when he quit. No, I was 8 when he quit, because it's been 40 years. And when he sobered up, we moved to Lake Tahoe for a year and a half. He had to, break his habit of friends. Uh, I call my formative years, my sixth grades through sophomore years, were in Southern California. And and then we moved to Bowling Green, Kentucky between my sophomore and junior year, and I've been here ever since. And now we came to Kentucky because there was a well hit in Clinton County, Kentucky, that from 4,000 feet deep, this well produced 4,000 barrels of oil a day. It was the largest oil well in North America at that point in time. And we came out here chasing it. We spent our first 5 years here in Kentucky and did not find enough oil to change it in your car. It was horrible. And from that point, if you're going to hunt for elephants, you go to Africa. If you're going to hunt for oil and gas, you go to the Gulf Coast. And so we went back to where we know what we're doing and went back to the Gulf Coast. Now, reason we stayed in Bowling Green, Kentucky, we love it. We wouldn't live anywhere else. Now, I find it ironic that my mom and dad were born in Maryville, Louisiana, literally an hour or so from where our field is now. And when my dad was 19, his grandfather was passing away, and my mom and dad were married. They had 2 kids at that point, and my dad goes to see Papa Burr before he dies, and Papa Burr kind of comes out and says, "Hey, Bobby," he says, "when you leave here, I want you to walk down that dirt road, and I want you to look both ways real good before you get home." He said, "When you get home, you pack that woman up, and you pack those kids up, and you head to the lights. This city has nothing for you." And so basically, head to the lights, go to the big city. And so my dad walked out of there, looked both ways as he was walking home, and looked at that little town. And don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful little town and all that, but it was you blink and you're past it. And so we kind of laughed, because my dad spent his entire adult life essentially running from that place. Come to find out, the biggest field we ever purchased was almost an hour from where he was born. And so it's amazing how things come full circle. And
Alignment is a beautiful thing. I love that for sure. But no, I was not expecting you to tell me you've kind of been all around the world in a sense, and that's still just, but in a sense, I was hoping that would be the answer. I was hoping that, it's not really specific to, because I think too, that may be what people think. I feel like people may listen to the beginning of this interview, and once they hear oil in Kentucky, they're probably gonna be like, okay, well, this is not for me. I'm not going to make this work. I'm not anywhere remotely close to that. But as they kind of listen, as you continue, as you even visit the website and go to the 101s and the 102s, you may learn a little something, and you may kind of figure some things out, and maybe figure that, hey, this is not really that hard. This is not as not achievable as I thought. This is really feasible. So in kind of piggybacking on my own kind of just guess question, but statement at the same time. So for someone who listens to this interview and says, wow, RJJ, you and your family, y'all lit a fire under me. This sounds amazing. This sounds like something that can go, it sounds like a duck to me. 1 + 1 = 2 to me. So where are some good places for people to start? Where are some people who may not have any knowledge, who might not really know oil more than their everyday use, or what they kind of hear, or what they've kind of been told even on this interview? Where could people start? What could people be looking for? Do people need to kind of, what steps could people take? I know that you said for some things career based and just to kind of what to do, you do have to, there is schooling, there are job titles, and just different things that you really have to do, trainings or what have you. But for your person out there who maybe looking to come into business in this, or add this to their entrepreneurial journey in some form or fashion, what could they do? What resources are out there for people to kind of get started with this?
That's a good one. I've never had to answer that question because I never had to look. Um, Now, over the years, one of the main group. Now, I used to run a broker dealer. We had 40 brokers, and so most of the guys that I brought into the business, I brought in on the sales side, and so that I would say that's the key. Is everything is sales. Doesn't matter what you're in. It doesn't matter what you're either selling or being sold every step of the way. And when it comes to oil, if you're young and just getting started and you're in college, you can go the geological degree. You can go with the petroleum engineer degree. You can work into the geological side of it and build your pedigree that way. For somebody who's starting in the beginning and has school and all that in front of them, that's what I'd say. That's the route. That way you have the geological foundation. Because here's the pivotal part of an oil company. That this is why we split it into two sides. If you are not able to fund your deals, if you have a great idea and you have wells that you want to drill, but you can't fund them, you don't have the ability to raise that money, you are always at the mercy of somebody who can. And so that was why I felt it so vital that I figure out how to raise money, because I wanted us to be able to do whatever we wanted to do. Now, on the same side, in the geological side, if you can't drill your wells in a cost effective manner, and if you can't find oil, you're always at the mercy of somebody else who can. That's why my brother went into that side of the business. We wanted to make sure we had the two biggest problems that you face in oil and gas covered. And that's where I'm still learning, but that's why I focused on the raising of funds, and my brother focused on the production and the finding of oil. And so that's really the two routes that you can go in. I mean, when it comes to accounting, yes, every oil and gas company needs a tremendous oil and gas accountant. That would be an area you could go into. Geologically, every oil and gas company needs a top shelf geologist. I mean, that's really what the oil and gas industry is. You are always buying somebody else's dream. Some geologist has come up with some reason this oil should be there. And the good geologist who can find oil, they really don't have to be good salesmen because their track record speaks for themselves. And so that's the crapshoot of oil, because it is a hard business. When it comes to investing with people, I really don't give suggestions to invest with anybody other than me, because I don't know what they're doing. They might be the greatest, they might be the worst. I don't know. And so I would hate to say, yeah, you need to go do that, and be wrong. Now, what I do know what I do. I can just show you what I have. And if that's something that works for you, terrific, we'll do business. If not, like I said, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I've been told no before. But education is the key. I mean, I was talking, my daughter's 17, and her and her boyfriend or a few of their friends came over. They had their Christmas dirty Santa thing. And I bought all of them a book. Well, actually, I bought all of them 2 books. And I went down there and I was talking to them. And these are 17, 18-year-old kids that are about to go to the real world. And I looked at them and I said, hey guys, hear me out for 1 second. I said, if y'all never listen to anything I say, just listen to me now and let this one sink in. I said, because when you get home tonight, I want you to look in the mirror. And I want you to truly, this isn't me being mean. This isn't me trying to snip at you. But when you look in the mirror, I want you to understand that all that muscle, all those good looks, everything you've done on the ball field, everything you've done in school, all the stuff that you have that has made you is irrelevant when it comes to competing in the real world. It does not mean anything. The only muscle that has an effect in the real world is this one right here. And so if you're going to lift weights, this is the weights you need to lift. And I gave them each Think and Grow Rich and Rich Dad Poor Dad. And the reason being is I want you to be prepared. Don't get me wrong. Everybody looks for happiness and everybody has fun and but the world is a cold, cruel, hard place. And it will leave you bleeding on the side of the road if you're not ready for it. Now, if you're ready for it, it's a wonderful journey and you can climb that hill. However, your key, my son, my 23-year-old asked me, he said, Dad, what's your keys to success? I said, it's easy. I said, number one, work hard. Number two, work harder. Number three, be the hardest worker. If you find something that you're talented in that you can make money on, and you're the hardest worker, everything else will take care of itself. That's the key. Find something you love doing. Don't make it work. However, don't delude yourself. Find something you love doing that you can make money doing. Maybe it's your second favorite thing to do. Maybe it's your third favorite thing to do. Find something you love doing. That way, it's not hard work. I love oil. I've never had a problem working at oil. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday night, and I'm sitting here in the office. Hey, no big deal, because this is what I do. And so if I hated it, oh man, how long would it be before I'd have to find something else to do? Because I'm not, life's too short to be miserable. And I know that every night, I've been doing this since I was a kid. Every night, I look myself in the mirror. It's hard to lie to that guy you're looking at. And the one question I ask myself, are you happy with who you're looking at? And if you are, you can smile and go to bed knowing you're doing right. Because you'll know if you're not. We were talking about conscience earlier. There's a reason God gave us that. You know when you're looking yourself in the mirror, you know whether you like who you're seeing or not. Now, if you like who you're seeing, then you're doing things right. If you don't, you better figure out what you've done wrong and fix it. Because you have to be able to smile at yourself, because, man, if you don't make yourself happy, then there's nobody out there that's going to, if you're not happy with yourself. And so it's just one of those things that you just got to be honest with yourself. I mean, it's I'm not harsh. I mean, with my kids, it's not my job to be their friends, but I'm not overly mean. I mean, I hate being mean. More, I don't like it. I will, and that's the big. Some people mistake kindness for weakness, but it's just one of those. I hate doing it, but by God, I hate to say it, but if it comes between you and mine, and if what you're doing is wrong, I'll cut you and bet which way you fall. Just please don't put me in that position where I have to, because I know what I'll do in that situation. And so it's just one of those, as long as you're honest with yourself, because it's real easy to not be. But man, that's why I make myself look myself in the mirror. You're looking yourself dead in the eye, and you know what you see. And then, you shuffle the decks. And I've also been a big guy that if you have a problem in life and you've done everything you can do to fix it, and there's nothing else you can do, don't worry about it anymore. Let God take care of it. Now, if the conditions change and there's something else you can do, you got to do it at that point. But when you get done, something happens, you start worrying, you worry. All of a sudden, 3 days later, well, you know where you are when you're done worrying? Right back where when you started worrying. And so it's just one of those, and that the only way that is, you have to be honest with yourself. And that's I think if a lot of people did that, and it, like I said, it's hard sometimes. It is. When you go in and you spent time eating too much, and you gain weight, and you've got a little double chin. I've been there before. Heck, I've been a yo-yo for 48 years. And so I'm not speaking. I know when I see myself whether I like what I'm seeing. And so you just, as long as you're willing to do it, man, then you don't have to step back from anybody.
And that's the best part. I think when you can have that conversation with yourself, that revelation with yourself, nothing anybody else says, nothing anybody else does is going to, at the end of the day, you have to look at you. You have to look at that man in the mirror, woman in the mirror. You're getting some great feedback from our Facebook Live audience, just the same too. So before we get into kind of just some last remarks and words and everything like that, I do want to ask another question that was presented too. So when it comes to what you're doing specifically right now, what's harder, the people or the business?
Probably the business, because we've been winning. It's my dad told me a long time ago, son, the true mark of a salesman is not when you're doing good. When you're doing good, everybody's doing good. The true mark of a salesman is when you're doing bad. And so things are going pretty good. And so my job's been a lot easier, because now if we're out missing wells left and right, then I'd say the people, because now you're fading heat. You missed the wells, you missed this. I mean, you got to, if there's something you can do to fix it, you got to fix. I mean, so when you're rolling, Now, the stress I have is the mechanicals and drilling. Like we're drilling a well right now. We're down to about 3,000 feet. And every 30, 45 minutes, they'll send an update out there. Well, I'll be looking at those updates all night long. And I mean, just because now we're in the performance time and that's something I can't control. I'm not, that's my brother's realm. And so they're down there turning the knobs and I'm a control freak. I'm a dude. I'd fly the plane if they'd let me, and so being able to turn that stuff over, that's, that was but thank God I got a guy that I trust more than anything.
And that's what I think too. I feel like the fact that this has been kept so in house, it's that rapport there, it's that trust there. It's just knowing that, okay, if I send him to the field, we're gonna be good. If I send him to go do this deal or negotiate or go talk to those people, I don't have to worry. I don't have to be calling every 5 to 10 minutes. Hey, did you say this? Did you get this? Did you get that? I don't have to nitpick, micromanage. So that's a good thing too. So I love the fact that this is all kind of one with people who you love, you trust, and everything like that, but with people who have done this before, who have been in this, who have done this, who have been in business with you, know how everyone kind of operates. Like you said, y'all still gonna have those moments. We're still men here. We're type A. We're still trying to make money, trying to do what's in the best interest and for the brand and the business. But at the end of the day, look, we want to do just that. We want to continue to elevate, continue to win, and we'll be good. Let him handle what he can handle. Let me handle what I can handle. The rest will handle itself. So now, before we get into what people can do to find you, to tap in with you and everything like that, I want to present you with, do you feel like there's anything that we haven't talked about today? Any even last words that you want to leave out there for business owners, entrepreneurs, for the audience? And even too, if you want to even give some insight, because I love the fact that we're going to have, obviously supporters of Down to Business, supporters of Panex, but we're going to have people who don't know either one of us, but now want to continue to support our journey. So is there anything that, as we continue to move through 2024 and in the years to come, that people can look forward to from the Panex side of things? Any things that you guys are kind of been experimenting with, any big projects that you have coming up, without spoiling anything or nothing like that? But I always want to leave the people with something, not necessarily like a call to action, but just some knowledge for them, just some talking points, and even just some things to look forward to as they explore the website and continue to follow the journey.
Well, I'll say this: when it comes to where Panex is going, I'll say this and let you infer what's going to happen from here. So we were at CPAC last year, and this kid from PBS, this reporter, walks up to me. He says, "Hey, you're the oil guy, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, who do you want to win in 24?" I said, "Well, depends on what me you ask." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, if you ask the everyday me, the guy that has to pay at the pump just like you, I want Trump to win." And I said, the reason I want him to win is he understands one thing that for some reason none of these politicians understand. He understands that oil prices have to be such that it makes it worth the oil companies expending the risk and money to go out and get it. However, it can't be too high where it breaks the consumer. He's the only politician that understood that. And we found a sweet spot at about $60 to $70 a barrel. I said, so if Trump got elected, the everyday guy would be okay because sanity would return. However, if you ask the oil guy in me who I want to win, I want Biden them to win. He said, really? Why? I said, because I want them to keep ESG scoring them. I want them to keep scaring people from oil. I want them to keep pushing alternative energies. I want them to keep doing everything they're doing right now and try to drive as much oil money as they can. I said, while he's doing that, I'm going to keep buying it. I said, when the ether bursts and everybody comes out from under it, and that bubble's done, and that bubble bursts, and everybody comes out from under the ether, the ones who own the oil are going to sit in a position of strength. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to continue to buy, and we're going to continue to expand, because I know this: the more oil we can put behind pipe, the more we can protect our partners' money. Because that's essentially how we look at it: is it's money in the bank. All we have to do is go down and get it. And so when I look at if you're going to park your money somewhere, well, you can park it in real estate. Everybody sees what happens in real estate. You can park it in gold, silver, precious metals. Everybody with the silver crunch. I mean, heck, what was it, 3 years ago now? Everybody realized there's more paper than there actually is silver. And so you look at all these areas where people have been protecting their money. Well, if you're buying oil in the ground and you can get it out of the ground, well, with oil, what do you have? You have a product that everybody has to have. You also have a product that half the population wants it free, and the other half the population wanted it at $100 million a barrel. And so you have two equally opposing forces pulling on every barrel of oil. And so you're going to have a fair value for what that oil is. And so I talked to my guys. Now, if we didn't know we had oil underneath us, if we didn't know that we were drilling these kind of wells, these direct offsets, we'd be having a different conversation. But I looked at my guys, I was like, look, If you're worried about all that, get your money out of the rat race. Park it here. Let's produce this oil over the next 10, 15, 20 years, and you'll turn $1 into 2, 3, maybe $10. But we know the oil's there. And so you got your money out of this craziness. And when you get it back, you get it back in whole. Now, if we were wrong and we missed, yeah, we'd lose your money other than tax benefits. However, knock on wood, it hadn't happened in a couple of years for us. And so that's what I'll tell you where we're going. We're going to keep doing what we do. We're going to keep acquiring, and we're going to put our head down and our tail up. Like I said, we're going to keep plowing until corn starts growing.
Ooh, I love that. That was an amazing breakdown. So no, thank you for that. And I'm excited now to have not really explored oil in any capacity before this episode. One of the first things I'm going to do when we hop off of here is go to that website and check out that 101 and that 102, because now I'm just very
please do.
And now I just want to start to pay attention to read things a little bit more. But you've placed a different perspective, or you've made sense out of something that I wouldn't say didn't really make sense, but I didn't really care to learn it or care to look into it or care. I wasn't invested in it.
No, I hear you.
But now that when you hear somebody else, one thing I love is just hearing people speak about what they're passionate about. And I think passionate may even be an understatement for you, because you love what you do through and through. I can hear it, but the education that comes with it, I can definitely hear the experience behind it just the same. And just wanting to put people in the best position. Like you said, you can't tell people what to do, where to spend their money, who to do it with. All I can do is tell you what we offer on this side and what I can bring to the table for you. And that's as simple as that. So now, this is kind of the call to action piece, but this is also the most important piece of the interview. People need to find you. People need to tap in with you, explore with you, potentially even invest with you and make some just the same. So for everybody out there looking to just get in contact with you, from social medias to websites to everything like that, just give us everything you got and allow the people to just, learn something new today.
But just you can get on Google, type in RJ Burr. It'll pull up I'm pretty much RJ Burr on all my social profiles. When it comes to easiest way to contact me, just email me, rjburr@panex.us. I answer every email. I go through them. I have 400 or 500 emails every morning to go through. Or heck, like I said earlier, panex.us/learn. Now on that page, there'll be a little field where you put your name, and we kind of password because we want to know who's going to the website. But I'm the only one who sees those. and your name's sacred to me. I don't give it to anybody. I mean, honestly, I don't like competition. And so I don't want to give your name to anybody else. And so that's basically what we do is you come through, there'll be 3 things on the landing page, the learn page. And once you fill the thing out, it opens it up where you see who we are. There'll be a page with 8 or 9 videos that tell our whole story, tell what we're doing out here. We want you to know who we are and why we're people that you should hit your wagon to before we talk money. Because once you see, I could quote any kind of crazy number you want to hear, but if I'm not somebody you should listen to, what difference does it make if I quote you numbers? And so once you see that I'm somebody that you should listen to, or once you see that my family is the kind of family that you'd have no problem breaking bread with, well, at that point, then we can show you what we can do for you financially. And then we can go to work for you.
Whew. Oh, I'm so glad we did this interview today on a Friday. This is a Friday well spent. I'm not mad at it at all. So from Tampa, Florida, all the way to Bowling Green, Kentucky, we are wishing y'all nothing but the best, but success. I'm excited to continue to see where the journey takes y'all, what really happens. Continue to keep winning. Like you said, if y'all are winning right now, then that means it's going to be a promising year for sure. But I just thank you time for the most definitely. I just thank you for all the time, the insight, even the education. Really, just you answered somebody's questions tonight, if no more than myself. But we definitely, like I said, we got some great feedback from the viewers who were tapping in with us from different social media sites, and you've definitely just light bulbs are going off in people's heads now. So thank you for that. But obviously, if we can support along the way in any form or fashion, definitely let us know. But to everybody out there who continuously taps in with us, to my guys who joined me on Facebook Live, I know we had some IG Live people just the same. LinkedIn gave us some trouble tonight, but we still made the interview happen. But nonetheless, thank you to everyone who tapped in with me. I love y'all. This has been another episode of the Down to Business podcast here with Tamar Turner.